Hey, you guys, it's Latrice back here again with Lift Her Up TV. Yep, I'm back with another video, and I just want to thank you guys so much for your support so far with this new endeavor, this YouTube channel that I've created. Thank you for sharing, liking, giving me just encouraging words on the channel. So y'all keep it coming, keep it all coming in, and we're just going to jump right on into it. Don't forget to continue to share, subscribe, turn on those bell notifications, and let me know. Let me hear what you're feeling about the content that I've been releasing. I really want to hear from you. So just to jump right on into it, I was debating internally about what I was going to talk about in this video, really just going back and forth internally. I wanted to make something that was personal to me, but still encouraging for other people. So I was like, oh God, like, what am I going to talk about? I was almost scrambling really to find a topic that I could talk about here. And the Lord kind of sat me down the way he normally does and was like, hey, chill out for a second, sit down, calm down. And he reminds me that my life is the testimony and that I am to use it to inspire this content. So by the title, you can probably already tell what we'll be discussing today. But yes, we're talking about transitions, and I wanted to give a background on why this topic resonates with me so heavily right now in this season. So I just wanted to give a little background in the beginning. So for the last about 3 to 4 years, I've experienced some rapid changes and transitional periods, some that were planned and others really mostly most of them were unexpected changes and transitions, and the transitions and the changes, they happen periodically, probably every few months or so maybe like once a quarter out of the year. For the last 3-4 years, I've gone through some sort of major change, or something very life changing in my life happened. So it would be either a job change or moving out of my parents' house. I started grad school, I finished grad school. There was a period of time my family actually lived with me in my little apartment. That's a whole other story in and of itself. I also began writing and creating content on a very public platform level and putting all of my personal business and my writings out there for the world to see, which was a huge transition for me. Even in this space right here on YouTube, something completely new to me, I've never done before. It's another transition, right? And obviously 2020 led to so much change for all of us, the biggest change. And even in that year, I started a whole new job in a new field in a community of people that I did not know at all. So that was a big transition for me. And I'm going to do another video to explain how that position went for that job and how I actually left that job about a year later to pursue the life that God intended me to have. So again, another transition after I left that job to do the things that God called me to do. And those are just personal things, but other things that happen relationally. I grew closer to some people in life and I separated for some people in life, and that is family and friends alike. I became more active in my church community and our congregation, serving a more leadership type role and taking on more responsibilities. And again, those are just external things that happened in my life. So many other things happened to me internally, mentally, emotionally. Transitions were happening, and just as an individual, I was going through cycles of the highest hope and the lowest despairs, and having these two dichotomies, like these two opposing feelings of like anger and love, and of course doubt and faith. So spiritually, I had a lot of transitions too in my relationship with God. And I wanted to share my journey with transitions and offer some encouragement and support for those who may be feeling boggled down by changes that are happening in their lives, in our lives, everyone's lives. So let's talk about transitions for a moment. Transitions can be geographic, they can be relational, spiritual, like I mentioned, emotional, financial, personal, and communal. Like things that we experience as a community, like the pandemic, it happened globally. All of us were feeling it, things that happen in our local communities, in our homes, our churches, our neighborhoods. Those transitions can happen with fellowship within a group of people. And relationally, I mentioned some things like falling out with different people and friends, but also you have the changes that are good, but there's still some level of adjustment that comes to it. Like when you get married, you go from a single person to a married person. That's a transition in and of itself. You go from a single person to a wife or a husband, whatever the case may be. That is a transition that you then have to deal with. You have to adjust, you have to pivot. And even though you might prepare for those things, like the things that can be prepared for, you prepare for them as well as you can. Nothing really prepares you until you actually like in it, So those are just some examples of different transitions that can happen. I mentioned financially. Sometimes you're out of a job or you shift positions, or like me, for instance, like I said before, I left my full-time position to do my writing on a more full-time basis. So the money, it changes when you shift positions. Passion requires currency. Amen. Yeah. So that is also just a different level of transition that some of us may not consider or think about. But transitions are inevitable for us. We're all going to go through them. And usually we're actually going through more than one transition at a time. And all of us handle change differently, and there are some of us, including myself, that have a harder time maneuvering through change, and we fight seasons of transition, which creates more frustration for us in the long run. So we're making the season harder than it actually has to be for us, instead of just going with whatever God is taking us through at that time. And I had to wrestle with all these transitions that were happening, because it would seem it's so consistent. It still is. It's like, boom, one thing, boom, then another thing. And all these unexpected things just pile up and pile up and pile up. And it leaves you feeling a bit paralyzed and out of control of your circumstances and your situation. So for me, a transition is hard because it requires a stability reset. And one of my favorite explanations or metaphors, images on how I feel during seasons of transition is the image of losing my footing. Or like I'm walking across unstable ground. It's like everything feels rocky, and it took me a while to realize that that's actually how I should be feeling. Like I should be feeling that way in transitional periods. You should be feeling that way during these times of transition. You should be feeling the weight and the shift of a transitional season, and they should disrupt our spirits in a sense, They really should. And you might be asking me, Latrice, that don't sound good, girl. Like, why should transitional seasons disrupt us? And it's because every transition comes with tension. Yeah, they come with tension. So even the areas where we're growing and elevating, we should expect some sort of tension to accompany our transition. And the Bible gives so many examples on how when God levels us up, when we go to a new level, when God is trying to do a big thing, he has big plans for us. There comes some sort of strife involved. There comes some sort of adjustment that's involved. And you don't want to take my word for it? Cool. Open your Bible. Go read about Jesus, David, Moses, Paul, Peter, Joseph, Esther. Like, go read about all these people. And there's so many more. That's just a few that I could think about on top of my head, but the list goes on and on. All these different stories in the Bible talk about people that have to shift and adjust and go through all these major transfigurational things in their life. And so they have to go through that transition in order to get to the promise that God has for them. Okay? And although we are guaranteed transitions in our life, the one thing that doesn't change is God. So to point back to the Bible with that, the Bible also tells us that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And as simple as that sounds, God leads us to and through transitions to show us his ever consistent and faithful nature. So transition allows us to see him working in us and through us. And it also gives us the opportunity to exercise our faith and our obedience to him. So really, a transition is the key to us proving to God, us showing him that we're not just playing with our faith, that we're actually putting in work with our faith. Okay? And I'm wrapping up a little bit here, but I wanted to mention a Bible study that I had gone through a few weeks ago. It was a topical Bible study on the Proverbs 31 woman. And I went there based on a conversation I had. It led me to that particular chapter and verse in Proverbs. But my specific Bible, it's a study Bible. So it outlines all these different characteristics of the Proverbs 31 woman, her as a wife, and like all the duties and things like that, attributes that she has, really. And one of the attributes that my Bible lists as a characteristic of hers, it calls her an instrument of optimism. Okay, so follow me here. How does this have to do with transition? Yeah, hold on tight. So it calls her an instrument of optimism. And that corresponds to Proverbs 31:25, where it says, she is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future, right? But that one particular verse challenged me to ask God how this woman was able to consistently carry optimism with her to her future that she was not certain of through changes and transitions. How was she able to do it? And after a little while of wrestling with that, I was like, Lord, I would love to be that optimistic about my future. Just to laugh at it. I would love to be that optimistic about things I don't even know that are coming my way, about the changes that are coming my way, the transitions that are coming my way, the hurdles, the obstacles. I would love to be optimistic about those things. How did she do that? How is that even possible? And God told me it's because she knows I'm present at all points, past, present, and future. Regardless of what changes happen to her, whatever transitions come her way, she knows that God is already there, making a way for her. She knows that God is greater than our time and our circumstances. So she can have a peace that regardless of whatever transition she's going to go through, God is already there. He's already in the future. He's standing at the edge of time, making a way for her. So my prayer has been to live like that, to live like the Proverbs 31 woman. And my prayer is the same for you. I know it's harder. It's easier said than done. And I know this is a lot of information to sort of digest about transitions, that they can be good for us even in the midst of hardship, because a lot of us, we don't like the change. Like I said, myself, I'm similar to that. So it takes me a while to sort of iron out these issues with God. It's a wrestling area, and I know it's a lot. It's a lot for me, so I can only assume that it's a lot for someone, because someone needs this message, right? And a great tool for me is always to journal out, to write out information, to write my steps out pretty much. I either always put it in my phone or always have my journal with me to write out all the different things that God downloads to me, things that weigh heavily on my heart, questions that I have for God. And this was no different. It's still no different. I'm still working through all the various transitions in my life right now. And I'm not saying that it is an easy thing. It's definitely not. It takes a lot of hard work. Some days are better than others, but I believe at first it starts with a self-awareness about what we're actually feeling during these transitions, what they're doing to us. It's identifying the thing, so then we can make sure we talk back to it and let it know who God really is in the midst of all this. So I love to do tools and resources and give practicality behind any sort of like encouragement that I get. I love to push out an additional, almost like homework, because everything feels good in the message, but are you really taking it home? Like, are you really sitting with it? Because I love to see change in people. And if there's no change, then how can I know that any of this is really beneficial to you? So I just suggest, it's not required, obviously, that you sit down with your journal, sit down with God, and think about a few of these things that I've discussed here with you today. Think about the transitions that have occurred in your life. It could be something as recent as today or 2 weeks ago, or it could be something that happened years ago. Maybe it's something that stuck with you for years. Maybe your parents moved years ago when you were like 6 years old and you moved across the country or across the world, or whatever it is. Maybe it's someone that you lost. Maybe it's a friendship that you lost, or someone close in your family that you lost that's no longer with you in the same capacity. That's a transition, and it needs to be noted. And think about which category it falls under, like the ones I mentioned earlier. Was it relational, family, friends, geographic, financial, spiritual, mental, emotional? All those things count. Was it a physical transition? I know sometimes with mothers, there's a transition from having a single body and then having a baby, carrying a baby in you, and then you give birth. And so you have a whole different physical component to your body now. That's a transition. And sometimes there's some grief with our transitions. It's meant to be like that though, but it won't last forever. So think about those things. Also take note of what went well in your transition or something that's been a struggle. And you can be honest about that. Be fully honest. This is a time for you and God to sit down, have a cup of tea, pray about it, worship about it. Be honest about what's hard in your transition, what's good in the transition, what hurts in the transition. God can handle that thing. He really can. Also, consider what you may have learned during the experience. What was a takeaway based on your experience? Are there any lessons that you learned? Was there something in yourself that you didn't know before? Was there strength that you played on? Or what was the outcome? Because I guarantee you there's something there. And this next part, I'll call it reminisce with the Lord, because oftentimes we see a thing one way, but God sees it a completely different way, because his thoughts are higher than ours. His view is higher than ours. Everything he sees is beyond what we can even imagine. So I call this reminisce with the Lord, because you're asking him to show you the transition through his eyes. It might have hurt you, but where is he seeing the beauty in it? Where is he getting the glory out of it? Ask him to highlight things that you might have missed, how he was working on you throughout the transition, in areas he was strengthening you and building you. Maybe there was an outcome and you just didn't see it until later, or maybe it was a benefit to someone else in the situation. You really never know. So I just encourage you to walk through those steps with your journal. Again, not completely necessary if you're not that type of person, but I just love to take those next steps and actually see what I'm growing at on paper, pen and paper. And if you want to take it to another level, I made a little one pager for you that walks through all those questions and a little bit more, that is totally free for you to download. And I am linking it in the description. So it's just a little walkthrough of those questions, and you can just take it with you in your prayer closet, or if you're going for a walk, just think about it and come back to it and write it down if you just have some idle time. So I really hope that it's beneficial for you. Again, completely free, and I'm going to link it in the bio. So I'm wrapping up now. But please, you guys, let me know if any of this helps you, if it resonates with you, like if you relate to it. Please let me know by commenting below. Or you could always give me a shout out on Instagram. It's where I am the most on all the socials. And my Instagram tag is at Latrice J. Simmons. I'm going to put that in the description as well. And you guys just let me know. Just comment, like, share. It really encourages me to keep making this content for you. I'm really excited with this whole new layout that we have going on. And you guys make it so worth it to just show up here every time I do it. I always feel a teeny bit nervous when I turn the camera on, but then everything just works out at the end of it. And I know that's God. And I just thank you guys so much. And until next time, remember to stay encouraged.